Easter begins in the dark. Not metaphorically, not even symbolically. The actual dark. Before sunrise, before clarity, before hope's found its footing, we find in Scripture Mary Magdalene. She's made her way to the garden, to the tomb, and she goes carrying what so many of us carry, grief that has not yet found words. She goes because when something ends, you still have to go somewhere. So she goes to the place where it all seemed to come to an end. She went to the tomb, and when she gets there, the stone is rolled away. Now, her first response is not, "He's resurrected." It's actually disorientation. She says, "They've taken him," which is to say, the loss is even worse than I thought. Listen to how Scripture paints this scene in verses 11 to 13. But Mary stood weeping outside the tomb. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb, and she saw two angels in white sitting where the body of Jesus had been lying, one at the head and the other at the feet. They said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" She said to them, "They've taken away my Lord, and I don't know where they have laid him." You can feel the disorientation. It's incredibly relatable. It reminds me when life breaks open for us. It doesn't always feel like good news at first. It can feel a lot like loss. And if we're honest, that's where most of us live our lives. Something dramatic changes in our life. A shock point occurs, and then we just carry this loss with us. We know what it's like to lose things that we can't replace. Death of a loved one, certainty in our careers, death of versions of ourselves we can't get back, death of broken promises. You could say that we've all been to the tomb. And so when someone says to us, "Christ is risen," there's a part of us that wants to ask, well, what does that even mean for me? What does that mean for my situation? And the truth is, resurrection isn't always recognizable at first. Sometimes it starts a lot like it does for Mary. It's like someone standing at the edge of a shoreline just before dawn. The sky is still dark. It's enough so that everything just kind of blends together. The water, the horizon, the distance. Now you know the sun is coming, but you can't see it yet. And for a while, it's just stillness. You just get the quiet uncertainty if anything will ever change. If you stay long enough, though, if you keep watching the horizon, something does begin to shift. Not all at once, not dramatically. It starts with a faint line of light along the horizon. Then a softening of the darkness. Then the colors you couldn't see before begin to emerge. Now the sun is on its way. You just can't fully recognize it yet. That's what's happening to Mary in John 20. Look at verse 16. Jesus says to her, "Mary." I love verse 16. For Mary, this is the moment everything turns. It is the crack of sunlight in her darkness. It's not the beginning of the resurrection story, but it is the beginning of when Mary begins to understand her role in it. It comes in a voice. It's not loud. It's not triumphant. It's not even overwhelming. She just hears her name, Mary. And at a soul level, things shift in her. Not because the world suddenly makes sense to Mary, not because all of her pain that she's been dragging along disappears, but because her soul feels the power of being seen. She is known. She is called by name. into something new. And that's where resurrection begins for all of us. It's not starts for us as an idea, not as a doctrine. It starts as an encounter, like a thin light that breaks through your night. What once felt like loss turns out to be the place where the living Christ meets you. In the places that we thought could only be consumed by death, the resurrected Christ says, "You're not alone in here." In John's gospel, resurrection is deeply personal. Jesus doesn't announce himself to the crowd first. He doesn't announce himself on a stage and make a spectacle. He calls a grieving woman by name, Mary, whose testimony would not have been valued in her time. Mary, who stayed when everyone else left. Mary, who came with no expectation except to just mourn. And the same is true for all of us today. Your sorrow, your pain, your loss, the things you drag with you through this life, they are yours and it's personal. And you may be here this morning carrying it in secret. You may be suffering in silence and you've been doing it for far too long. And it doesn't matter if there is a single person in this room or another person on planet Earth that knows the secret that you are carrying. It's okay if there is not another human that can relate to your pain, because I'm telling you, Christ can. Christ does. Like Mary, Christ's resurrection is personal for you, and it comes to you at a soul level. And in those spaces that you carry that feel like loss, that is when you hear Christ speak your name. Mary, Charles, Brenda, Henry, Jane, Kyle, Lydia, Charlotte, Lois, John, Tracy, Barrett. The resurrected Jesus calls Mary by name and calls you by name too. And when this happens to Mary in the story, everything changes. Christ meets her in her pain and identifies with her, names her, and the same is true for us, which tells me something about the shape of resurrection. It doesn't wait for us to have it all figured out. It meets us in the raw, honest, unfinished pain, and it calls us forward. It is personal, direct to the heart. And for Mary, because of this moment, her grief transforms. It doesn't turn into denial, but it turns into recognition. Her response to Jesus is, "Teacher." She gets it. Her soul opens. She sees him for who Christ is now. And that's the rubric for us. Jesus is here to bring you forth out of your denial, out of your pain, out of to whatever it is you're dragging along into this life, and wants to offer you new life. When we turn towards that voice that calls, that's when we see Jesus for who Jesus is. And that's the beginning of our healing. And here's a fact that I just can't shake. We're actually going to talk about this in detail next week, but since it's true there, it just makes sense that it would be true here too. Next week, we're going to read and study and learn about the disciple Thomas and the moment when Jesus, the resurrected Jesus, appears to him and shows him his scars, the scars he endured from the cross. So here's what I can't shake. Mary would have seen those scars too. I think this matters so much because resurrection isn't about going back to what was. Jesus isn't hitting a reset button by resurrecting. He's not pretending that Good Friday shouldn't have happened and didn't happen. The wounds are there. They're just no longer the end of the story. They've been taken up into something larger, something bigger, something deeper, something that is alive and no longer a symbol of what's dead, which tells us resurrection doesn't erase our wounds, but it transforms them from death to life, which tells us the broken places in our lives, they are not disqualifications for new life. They're the very place where new life begins. So the grief you carry, the questions that you hold, the parts of your story that feel unresolved and undone, these are not obstacles for you to experience resurrection. They are, in fact, the soil from which resurrection takes root. And this is good news. This is the good news of the gospel for us all. Easter doesn't ask us to ignore our pain. It dares us to believe that our pain doesn't get the final word. Not because we're powerful enough on our own to overcome it, not because we should repress them and only focus on the brighter side of things, but because God is at work within it. Easter brings life where we thought there could only be death. The resurrected Christ says to us all, I have come from death to life, and I can lead you through it too. And so maybe, just maybe this morning, you will listen for that voice in your soul that invites you into new life. It is surely saying your name. It wants to bring you into new life because to God, you matter. To Christ, you are known. And you are loved enough to be healed. So listen for how Christ calls your name, for how Christ is meeting you in the gardens of your own grief, showing up in places that you have written off as finished, and then calling you, not back to what was, but forward to what can be. Christ is here to move us all from death to life. It's not a returning. It's a becoming from death to life. It's not always loud, and it's not always going to be obvious, but it's going to be real, and you will feel it at a soul level. This is how resurrection moves today. Christ meets us in the ordinary moments, through the quiet shifts, through ordinary days, and again, and then brings us forth slowly from death to life. Resurrection brought Christ from death to life. It brought Mary from an emotional death to new life, and it wants to do that for you. Our pain doesn't get the last word. Christ can transform it from death to life, and we don't have to wait until we die to experience it. Like Mary, that joy can be found right now. That disorientation that you're dragging along, it can be healed now. You can release the regret, the resentment, and the pain that cripples your mind now. And you can move from death to life now. That's the power of the resurrection. That is the gift Christ gives to us all. We can move from death to life. It's not a returning, it's a becoming from death to life.